Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in to the Recruitment Reality podcast. I am honoured to be joined by three of my favourite, industry colleagues, peers. They are clients as well, but that's kind of redundant because most of the time we spend talking about other stuff rather than Willow and recruitment. But really great to have you all on. I'm going to hand over to Marley to do the HelloFresh introduction and beginning. So over to you, Marley. I won't do you any justice. So looking forward to hearing your intro.
Thank you. So I'm Marley. I'm the talent acquisition manager at HelloFresh. My team look after all sort of office-based recruitment in the UK distribution centres. So we've got 3 distribution centres soon, and more growth sort of coming in the coming years. So it's a really exciting time to join HelloFresh. It's a really small team. So we've got 4 recruiters and myself and a lead. So really small team, but really huge numbers. And with the growth that we're experiencing at HelloFresh, it's really exciting because we're sort of, and we'll probably go into a lot more in detail in a bit, but just it's really exciting to be able to shape kind of the future of what the company's going to look like. So yeah, that's probably the main reason why I joined HelloFresh, I'd say.
Nice. Thanks, Marley. Who's going next? Meg, go on.
Oh, no. Sorry, I was pointing at me because I was like, and you joined because of me, Marley. That was also
And because at the time, Meg was my manager and I thought, what a wonderful woman. This is why I want to join the company.
Inspirational leader.
Oh,
there you go.
Stop it. Oh, my head won't fit in the screen.
That's a natural segue, Meg, into you giving an introduction. So go for it.
So I do the workforce staffing, I manage the workforce staffing at the Nuneaton DC. Pretty much we do all of the hourly stuff. So all of the stuff that Marley doesn't, and her team doesn't do, we do. So we do all the high volume pieces. I've been with HelloFresh for almost 2 years now, I think in like 2.5 weeks, which is terrifying. Feels like 7. It's like dog years. It's weird.
Definitely.
And in that time, I've actually had the pleasure of working across pretty much all 3 sites and helping with Jack's site, as well as starting off at the original OG site in the UK, which is Banbury. So it's really quite exciting, the sheer growth and actually witnessing it. Yeah, it's insane. But I'll let Jack go next.
Go on, Jack. Give us your.
Yeah, so I am the fabled Jack that you've heard so much of. I'm Meg's counterpart. I look after our Derby operations, so we're looking again at the workforce staffing element, managing that acquisition and making sure that we bring on the best possible candidates for our high volume roles. So I've worked with HelloFresh that would have been at the beginning of this month for 2 years, but not officially. So I was an agency supplier through a company that was a tech platform for a couple of years, and then joined the team here in February. So it's been a good baptism of fire, and not only that, it's been a good learning experience. I left London for the first time in my life to move to Derby.
Barbados.
Barbados is
back to the homeland.
Where would you rather be?
Yeah, you need to move into the country. Yeah, you need to move into the countryside, Jack. That's the key of Derbyshire. As a Darbadian, you'll
go crazy.
I couldn't.
No, I don't. It's not that far from.
Woody, I need tall grey buildings.
He needs to not be able to see the sky and the stars at night.
Yeah, well, that's
just needs pure pollution.
Yeah.
Pure pollution. I want to be pushed onto trains like a sardine. I just want that life.
Yeah, get back to it. I'm certainly not in the same boat, Jack, I have to be honest. There's only 2,500 people where I live, so... and am I right in thinking Derby's the newest?
Yeah, we are the newest. I'm the newest, baby.
And just to give everybody an idea of scale, I mean, it made me laugh because the first time we had a chat, it was literally the first 20 seconds of conversation. You were like, so... Do people use Willow for high volume stuff? And I was like, oh, yeah. You know, there was one company, they're hiring like 200 people a month. And you were like, that's not high volume, guys. What does high volume actually mean? Well, let's start with Jack in Barbados. What level of people are you actually hiring on a sort of weekly, monthly basis?
I mean, this is going to be where it gets embarrassing because my site's the smallest at the moment of all three of the sites that we have in the UK. It's about a quarter of the size of Meg's site, but that's because I've got a project coming down the road that might not be so pleasant for me. But high volume hiring for us here looks to be probably around 70 employees a fortnight. So just for this one site, we're bringing on around 140 variable workers in a month. But high volume hiring in Nuneaton, that's quite substantially different.
How much is that then, Meg?
So when we're at our peak, I think we did a month of hiring around about 100 to 120 a week.
Wow.
And that was doing 3 days of inductions, morning and afternoon. So we were doing about 30 per session. So yeah, it was high volume, funnily enough.
Yeah, that is. I mean, it's a lot higher volume than I've ever been involved with, to be totally honest. I think, anyway. I mean, we would do at Pareto. We do about 250 placements a month, but obviously it was totally different because they were all in different companies. Usually, it was like one person per company, especially in my kind of client base. Whereas for you, it's very, very different. What's the biggest challenge that you face, Meg, in your, in finding those people, onboarding them, getting them started? What's the hardest thing that you have to actually do?
To be honest, at the moment, I would say it's the actual onboarding process as a whole. It's something that Jack and I are pulling apart at the minute and putting back together to make it more streamlined and make it so things feed into each other instead of, it's because of the sheer speed in which HelloFresh has grown. We've had to kind of deal with that speed and make things work for us instead of having things made to work with us. So we've kind of had to manage and do a lot of things manually, which is why we're now looking down the avenues of how we can streamline the processes by introducing new platforms and ways to make our lives easier. Platforms and systems like Willow, for instance.
Nice little segue there.
Oh,
Thanks.
God. Yeah. Just so everybody knows, I tried to say, I made a joke about mentioning Willow, and the guys were like, "No, we definitely will." And I was like, "No, it's going to be so awkward."
What do you mean? You slipped me a tenner at the beginning of this.
Where's my tenor? I feel so left out.
Whoa, Jack, you're getting a snapback. Come on, this
is true.
Just
He's paying
bribing
us
us with Willow merchandise.
I'll take it.
Yeah. If you include delivery,
I feel like Marley would look good in a snapback.
Oh, she don't want it. She wants a bucket hat.
Yeah, she's getting a different type of hat. not the prime goods that we're getting here. But yeah, sorry, Meg, I interrupted rudely.
No, it's fine. I gave you that segue, so it's not a problem. So it's just kind of streamlining the processes at the moment. And one of the biggest things for myself and for Jack, and to be fair, for Marley as well, is making sure that our candidates that are coming through the process have the best experience going through it. And to feel like they're a part of HelloFresh, because the culture of HelloFresh is absolutely amazing. It's extremely inclusive, and people have I can speak for my journey here, but people have your back and they're there to support you, and vice versa. It makes you want to support them. And I think it just shows, for me, the HelloFresh culture. So when I was onboarding the first original bunch of people for the Nuneaton site in October 2020, I went down to the canteen literally last week, and one of the original people that I onboarded came over just to have a chat with me because they remember me. They want to let me know what's going on in their lives, see how I'm doing. And that's the sort of culture that HelloFresh is, and that's what we want to instill. So making sure that we get that right at the very beginning is one of the biggest things for us, to really push that HelloFresh narrative and our DNA across all areas of the business, from the shop floor all the way up to, the CEO, just to make sure that everybody is in unison.
Yeah.
I think like as an agency partner, when I first started with HelloFresh, it was really key for me to build into that culture and to understand the culture and deliver that to our operatives that we were bringing on board as an agency worker. HelloFresh was the first business that I ever worked with in a client capacity that actually gave us as an agency free reign to involve ourselves in that culture. And just again, to sort of reiterate what Meg just said about the way that people still are engaged with the business, people that I onboarded in August 2020 to work as a production operative in Banbury followed me from Banbury to Nuneaton and were working in Nuneaton for me as production operatives or cleaners or people audit supervisors. We placed someone into our own recruitment team internally, and we had a new member of our team in Meg's team start a few weeks ago, and his first placement within the business, officially with a HelloFresh contract, was to a former Coupler that used to work for me, that came from Banbury through Nuneaton and has now been contracted into our technical team and is embodying our DNA all the way through. And for us, that story, that journey is key. And that engagement piece is where we've got people through the door and still inside the building. Obviously, with the amount of people that we're bringing in, the easiest way for us to do that is to keep the people that we've got. And for us and for this business, it's key to give them everything that they need to thrive and to grow.
So what do you, I'm sorry if this is a difficult question, but in terms of the DNA, what do you think it is that makes the HelloFresh DNA? I mean, like as an outsider looking in, I haven't met somebody at HelloFresh. I'm sure there are, as with all businesses, but I haven't met somebody at HelloFresh that doesn't get on with other people in HelloFresh, doesn't have a similar kind of, you know, open, honest, authentic, actual relationship with each other. Like there's never been any sort of false corporateness, if you see what I mean. What do you think? Like, that's just me looking in. What do you think makes the HelloFresh sort of DNA so special? Maybe Marley, you answer that one.
Yeah, I think the most important of our DNA for me, and I think this is the one that you're talking about here, is the one called egoless environment. And that really is that no matter what level you are, no matter who you are, you know, we all are the same in that, you know, if you have a point that you want to raise or you have a concern about something or whatever, raise that. It doesn't matter, you know, you could be sat next to a really senior member of staff and they'll just have a chat with you. You go for a coffee, you know what I mean? It's that whole environment of us just working cohesively together because we all have the same end goal. It doesn't matter if I'm in recruitment or if I'm, you know, in operations or production or technical. Ultimately, we all contribute to the production of our boxes in different ways. You know, recruitment, we provide the people that will give a great level of service, you know, downstairs or on our production floors, or you know, we provide really skilled workers that are going to do a great job and improve our error rate or improve our candidate journey or our employee experience. You know, every single team has that role to play. And I think that having that being underpinned by the egoless environment is really, really key. And it's definitely one that I think is important for a lot of people that I speak to.
100%. Massively.
Yeah. Echo that completely.
I mean, it just shows from when I sat next to our former COO and never had spoken to him properly or anything. And I just, in true Meg fashion, introduced myself and said a joke to make him laugh and all that kind of stuff. And we found a common thing that we could talk about, which was art. And then after that point, every single time he was on site, he would always go out of his way to come and say hi to me, to see how I was doing, what was happening on site with recruitment and things like that. And I hadn't been in a business before that had people on site of that level that didn't look, not down, but, you know, didn't look at you kind of like, oh, I don't want to waste my time, or kind of like, So it's really nice to have that open kind of environment to be able to talk and work in.
Especially in such a big business. Like, it must be really, really difficult to actually keep that.
Definitely. And I think where, you know, we were literally a startup 10 11 years ago. It was a few people there putting things in bags and delivering them in a van or on a bike. Themselves. I think it was in Germany.
Yeah.
And now where we've scaled, that's where, when it comes to recruiting, it's really important that we are looking for people who embody our DNA. So there'll be a section of our interview where we ask you questions solely based on the DNA. So we've assessed your competency level and based on kind of what we'd be looking for technically. But the DNA piece is so important as well, because that's what, you need to embody every day, essentially. So it's really key that we find people that reflect that and that are going to, believe in the brand and embody what we expect from our DNA.
Absolutely. And it all, the story of a COO having that conversation, it does all start from the top. It has to trickle throughout the organisation. You can't say that you're egoless and then have a megalomaniac CEO. It just doesn't really work. But is that you, Meg? You're the megalomaniac.
Just said megalomaniac.
Meg, yeah.
I was like, Meg, hello.
Yeah, it must be me.
That's my new nickname for you, I think.
Yeah,
megalomaniac.
Yeah, I like that.
Fabulous.
Very good. Well, if you leave the podcast with nothing else,
megalomaniac.
Meg.
New nickname.
I mean, I still remember when I was dealing with Thomas when we were doing the trial of Willow, and I don't know why, it just stuck with me. I was like, oh, so what do you think of the tool? And he just goes, well, my peers are happy, so I'm happy. And that was like, to me, a lot of times when you're dealing with a buyer, they're like, well, yeah, I think it's going to drive efficiency and productivity and, all of this. And it's like proper, like, obviously we looked at the ROI and we did all of those calculations and everything, but actually it was my peers are happy, so I'm happy. That was the thing that kind of really came across, which I thought was, again, symptomatic of the kind of HelloFresh DNA. So one question that I've got around that, obviously we've talked a lot about living and breathing that, but how do you actually get that employer brand out there so that people know, that's the kind of company you are and that's the kind of company I want to apply to? Whoever wants to answer that.
Yeah, I think it's... Sorry, Meg, do you want to go?
No, you go for it, girl.
I'll go and then you can add some colour to it. So I think it's a really interesting one where we've grown so quickly. We've probably relied quite a lot on our consumer brand, and it's definitely why part of the reason why I wanted to join the company is because I'd seen how successful HelloFresh was and I wanted to be part of that. So I think a lot of it has come from that, and I think what we're really recognising now is that we can't rely on that forever. And where we operate in so many different markets as well, it's really key now that we align with we make sure we've got those local nuances and that actually our employer brand in the UK reflects the market that we're within, but that we've got that unity across all of our markets and we've got that similar sort of outward brand. So there's a lot of work going on in a work stream internally at the moment just to really look at that and make sure that we're really clear on what our employer value proposition is. And then how do we outwardly want to portray that? So it's an ongoing piece of work because it's super important, and it's just the natural next step for us as a team and as a company where we've got to the point where we've had super growth, pandemic, for a couple of years, and now the team is the size that it is, that we're actually at the point where we can go, let's stop and think, how do we want this to look moving forward? And another one of our DNA has just been added recently, which is long-term orientation, and that's really where that sits. It's we've made it work for the now because we've had to, but actually now we're at that natural stage as a business where we're thinking, how are we going to lay the foundations for the future? How are we going to create longevity? And every time we write a process now, we're like, does that work for now or does that work in 5 years time? And how can we make sure that we keep editing that to make sure that it's relevant for the here and now? So yeah, definitely a hot topic at the moment.
And how does it differ, Marley, in your recruitment arm of the business versus the volume side of things? Like, is there a different message that you try to put out there?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's interesting because we've got our hourly workers who are on the production floor will have a different set of benefits, for example, to like our salaried workers. So it definitely is a slightly different message. Because different demographics of people value different things. So I think there's certainly a piece to look at there. and I know that Meg and Jack, your team, are sort of working at looking at what that looks like for the hourly population. We've also done a lot more work recently around engagement of that workforce, because actually they represent the large majority of our workforce. So how can we make sure that they've got real access to the right information and to understand really what the HelloFresh brand is and what we can do for you and why you would want to work here? Because I think otherwise, we could be anywhere, couldn't we? You come and you do your job and you leave, but actually when it comes to retention, how do we keep them here? How do we make them think I'd rather work here over anywhere else? And that's really a piece that we're looking at the moment as well.
It's interesting. And sorry, go on, Meg.
I was just going to say for the hourly side, it is different, because some of the things that the salary guys will jump for and be like, oh, what an amazing benefit, actually doesn't really play a part in the guys who are hourly for us. So we are looking at all the different factors of what we can bring in to improve their work life, but also improve their work life balance. That's one of the biggest pieces for us, is to make sure that we're giving them somewhere to work, but also they can have their life as well outside of it, because a lot of places it can be very much just work. Rihanna.
Well, especially at that level, especially at an hourly level, right? Because it is like the more hours you work, the more money you earn. Whereas a salaried person, clocks off at lunch and that's it. You're salaried, working from home, job done.
Exactly. So we're trying to make sure that we're doing as much as we can to show those guys that we really appreciate everything that they do, because at the end of the day, and this is something that I tell every single person in my team, without any operatives on that floor, that is the heart of this business. Without them, none of us have work. Like, this company will die without them. So we need to let them know that they are valued. They are, people that we want to keep and retain and to develop. And one of the biggest things that I love about HelloFresh is that they are so on board with mental health. So myself, Marley and Jack are all mental health first aiders. So we've all gone on that course together so we can help people who need that sort of support. But it's something that we offer anyone and everyone in the business, to let them know that we're there for the support, as well as, every other sort of benefit we can give you. It's not just the physical and the monetary, it's also, the mental side that we'll be there to support you with as well. And for me, that's such a massive thing. So many companies don't really care about that kind of stuff. It's like, oh, you're working yourself into, you're going to burn out? Oh, okay. Take a day off.
Find another one.
Yeah, exactly. So it's nice to be a part of that business.
I'd agree completely with that. Like, what was really inspirational about HelloFresh when I first started working with them was what was known as the open door policy. It's something that we still have in place, and there is obviously locks on our doors because of confidentiality and security, but every door in this business is open at any time. So, and we really ensure that our operatives on the floor are aware of that, so that they can come and speak to us about anything. And we say it to them on their inductions, through their first day and into their first few weeks with us. Whether it's personal, whether it's professional, if it's something to do with your finances or relationships, we want to know so that we can support you, so that you can deliver the best to us. When you work, especially, lots of your listeners will probably understand this, having dealt with agencies or worked in an agency or with an agency at some point. Ultimately, agency workers are so transient. They come, they go. They move for the smallest of factors. They move for a 5p increase. They move because they can get a shift quicker. But ultimately, what will retain any one of those workers is going to be the way that you care about them and the actions that you take to value them. Some of the best agencies that I've worked with, but also worked for, have been so successful because their employer brand is about the individual. And it was the first agency I worked with in hospitality very many years ago. I remember the director of client operations, I had a meeting with him, and he said something to me that stuck with me forever. And that is, the people that we deal with are our product, and without them, we are nothing. So if we can't sell the best product, we're not going to succeed. And you translate that across into maybe a retail environment and think of brands like Prada or Gucci. They hold this high level because of the quality and the expectation that you as a consumer have from the way that product is treated and has been manufactured. It's the same when you're dealing with people. You're working with an agency. You want to work with the best possible agency that treats their employees with value and care and respect, because you then get the best possible service from that employee ultimately. And for us, we've been so reliant historically, and because of the volumes that we bring on, we are reliant on our agency partners to deliver us really high quality candidates for a temp to perm process. And if we're working with the wrong agencies and they're delivering the wrong experience, then they're not representing our brand, and we'll never be able to work with that employee in the right way.
It's so interesting because you look at other companies with warehouses and their productivity is based around time spent in the canteen or lack thereof. It's making sure that you pick a certain number of products. And I'm sure that you have metrics absolutely in place for that kind of stuff. But the stuff that really drives productivity is somebody wanting to hit those metrics. It's not having the metrics in place. It's somebody feeling happy, confident, comfortable enough that actually they go, oh, do you know what? I'm so buzzed up. This is like an amazing growing business. I feel like we're the engine room. I'm going to do the best possible job that I can today, as opposed to it's just a bloody hourly job. They're going to just call me into a room every time I miss a metric, and that's it. 3 strikes and I'm out. It's that difference.
This is where our job as recruiters is so integral, because we set that tone from day one. So we set that expectation and that engagement piece. And where we're really fortunate, I suppose a little bit more so in the workforce staffing division for Meg and I, is that we work with stakeholders in our operations departments and we work with our stakeholders in our people teams to ensure that the messaging that we deliver is translated across onto the floor and is translated into the people function, so that the way that they're being managed and any disciplinary issues or grievance issues are actually being managed in the fairest possible ways with the same kind of expectations that we set from day one. So as a business, we've been really tight over the last couple of years to be really united in the messaging that we deliver to our operatives down on the floor. And that's where our success has been. And that's where our retention and attrition figures are actually so well placed. Looking into the business from an external point of view, the attrition figures here are really small. And you look at that retention capacity, you translate that out from an agency where I've worked before. To have attrition numbers that we have here at HelloFresh would be remarkable. And as a business, you would be really, really thriving. Now, for us, it means having an attrition rate that low, the cost to hire is so small, the efficiency of our teams can be rediverted. That's why we've got the ability in workforce staffing to be so across the functions and aware of the employee's journey inside the business, because we're really tactical and we've really set a strategy that's right for that whole employee engagement piece from day one to, unfortunately, the day that they leave with us. So we've really started to tie out that whole process.
Awesome. Okay, so I think we've probably talked about employer brand. It's not employer brand. It is employer culture that turns into employer brand. That's the thing that people miss, is your employer brand can be great, but if somebody turns up day one and actually it's a shit job with shit people and it's a shit onboarding and, everything's shit, then they're going to tell everybody and all of a sudden your employer brand goes in the toilet, right? So it's totally different. The perception of employer brand is a strange thing at the moment. But what I'd like to talk about, if it's okay, is just selection. So from a sort of an assessment, process, etc. I guess, Marley, maybe start with you in the kind of professionals side of things. What does your funnel look like, and how do you actually assess for the kind of right DNA? What process do you put people through?
Of course. So our first stage is Willow.
Another little squeak on there.
No,
do you know what? It's funny, Marley. I didn't know that. I didn't know.
Oh, really? No, it genuinely is. I mean, before we worked with you guys, it was always a telephone screen or a telephone interview, so applicants would apply. We also we take direct applications. We work with partner job boards, and we also headhunt through LinkedIn, depending on how hard to fill the role is. So a combination, as well as employee referrals. There's various different ways that a candidate could come to be sat on that vacancy. But once we have that pool of candidates, it would be an initial screen, previously on a telephone call, where we just kind of assess the culture fit. We get to know kind of a bit more about the candidate, what they're looking for, give them more information about the role. That's now obviously done through Willow, which is great because it saves us a lot of time, for one thing, but also we had some really great feedback from hiring managers about how they've appreciated being able to, if they want to watch that video, they can, because then they can see a little bit more about how that person, might fit with the team. And we ask, one of the questions we ask on there at the moment is, what's the most exciting thing about you or interesting thing about you that we wouldn't learn from your CV? And I think that's always a really great one to be able to, try and, because I think some people will go with oh God, it's a really tricky question because I still want to show how good I am and share my skills. But really what we're asking there is, tell us something about you. Tell us something about you as a person that you do outside of work that's not on your CV. You wouldn't put it on your CV necessarily because it's not relevant, but to that kind of document. But actually, tell us about you. Tell us about what you do. So yeah, we use Willow. Really fantastic. It's very efficient, and also just gives us a real feel for that candidate and how they might work with us. So yeah. After that,
there are other parts. Oh, what? After that, hire maid. It's the simplest tool ever.
That's it. We know. But no, the process can differ depending on the vacancy. Some vacancies we may choose to add in something like a technical test. If it's a role, for example, in our operational excellence team, or our planning teams where you need, quite a high level of Excel skill, for example. And then if that isn't the case, it could be sort of a first stage competency interview, and that would be with the hiring manager and one other, to just sort of assess competency and DNA. So that is where we've got a question bank, and the hiring manager will create their interview pack. I've worked in companies before where you have a set pack for a role, and it gets repetitive very quickly because someone might apply for a role multiple times, they get asked the same questions, and they get to know what they're expecting quite quickly. Whereas with us, we would create a fresh pack every time with a different combination of questions, and there's thousands of different potential combinations, so the likelihood of getting the same thing is quite low. So we assess technical skills, so skills related to the role directly, competency, so that's quite a lot of the give me an example about a time when you've done this type questions, and then questions relating to our DNA. So that's sort of the main interview. That could be the last interview depending on the role, but if not, there's often a final stage interview where you might meet with the head of or the director of that department, depending on the seniority of the role, for just a bit of a culture check, because that part is just so integral to us. So yeah, it's not sort of a set process. It's the same every time. It can absolutely differ, but those are sort of the different components that could complete the interview process. And then after that, we've got a really great member of our team who does all of our admin, and ultimately deals with the pre-boarding side of things, so offer admin, contracts, communicating with the candidate and organising induction and everything like that.
Great. And how long does that process on average take?
So our time to fill at the moment is sitting at about 28 to 30 days, I think, at the moment. It can differ if a role's really hard to fill, obviously, but generally we're sitting around that mark, which is really encouraging. And I think anything under 30 days, we're quite comfortable with at the moment. Obviously,
anything under 30 days, and you're way ahead of the average across the UK. And
I think there's often quite a focus on time to fill and getting people in roles really quickly, and absolutely that's a measure, and that's an important thing. And but it's also ensuring that candidate experience is balanced at there as well. It's kind of a balance between quality and speed, I think, because you could rush someone through a process, but then they could turn around and say, actually, was a really poor process. I might have got the job, but it felt a bit rushed. So I think it's just finding that balance, and we do capture candidate feedback through an NPS system that we use. So as soon as a candidate leaves the process, whether that's because they've been unsuccessful, unfortunately, at this time, or they have been successful, they'll receive a survey a few days later just to kind of provide us with that qualitative data so that we can start to really pick apart our processes. And if there's, you know, a point in the process that's getting quite a lot of negative feedback, then actually that's where we can focus in on improving that.
Interesting. And how does, I can imagine that is incredibly different to the workforce side of things, because I would imagine your time to fill needs to be a lot quicker, right?
Yeah, definitely. We need to, for like Jack was saying earlier, it's all about speed, in all honesty, because to be able to retain the talent that we find, we need to be able to process them pretty quickly, because, you know, they could find a job that will take them tomorrow that pays them less, but they're starting tomorrow. So
yeah,
it's that kind of ball game. I think with the more bespoke positions that we do, so the more like positions where you need probably a little bit more of a skill set and things like that still sit within the hourly function. One of the biggest things for me is to try and drive that internal talent towards it, and try and develop the internal talent first, because that overall helps with retention. People love to be developed and love to grow within a business. So being able to try and push that first is a big thing for us. So we usually try to target internal people first and then go external if we're not able to manage to find the internal talent. But if it's something completely new, we're doing assessment centres to bring in an influx of new people, we will be looking at doing assessment centres and bringing in those people where we will be, funnily enough, assessing them against what it is that we're wanting to bring them in for. But this is something that Jack and I at the minute are, in all honesty, we're tearing apart and putting back together again, because what we've done historically, it works. It definitely works, but we want to make it better, and we want to make it so the people who come through the door, they feel a part of HelloFresh straight away. So we have at Nuneaton, just the Nuneaton site, we have over 50 nationalities. So we're a very diverse group. And doing an induction, doing an assessment where we're doing a presentation and talking to them about the site, about health and safety, about all of these different things that we're trying to instill into these potential employees, there's a large chunk of them that will be hearing what we're saying, translating it in their heads, and then trying to understand it. So what Jack and I are trying to actually do is look at ways, and we found a couple of things that will work, where we can actually get everything that we need in front of them in an engaging platform, an engaging way that will be translated into over 50 languages. So they'll be able to follow everything that we're saying in their own language, so they have a full understanding of what it is to be working at HelloFresh, to be working safe at HelloFresh, and what it is that the company would like from them and what they'll get back in return. And then that will really instill HelloFresh into them, because we're making us fit them, not them fit us. And with that, they'll be safer on site, they'll be happier on site. You know, that communication level will be there, but it's getting that first initial bit of engagement from them. And it's a really big piece that Jack and I are super excited about.
Yeah. You need like a Madame Two Swords headphone solution. You know, when you go to Madame Two Swords and you're walking around and they've all got different headphones and they got all the different languages on. I could just imagine, like, Donde es the canteen? You know, like they're just walking around, everybody selects that would be like an obvious solution, right? If you just standardized the chat and then gave everybody headphones with pre-recorded languages. Like,
that is
surely
something
that is
we didn't think of. Jack,
we could now.
We've got to go back to the drawing board.
Just take Madame Two Swords' solution. I mean, you might end up with like, and here is Michael Jackson. You know, like people being like, "Well, that looks like an aubergine to me, actually." But never mind.
Can we do it as long as you're doing the
voiceover
translations for us? Yeah. So
Oh
you'll be like,
yeah,
La
sure.
biblioteca. I don't know why there's a library at HelloFresh, but
Yeah, nice. This is the accessible 50 nations. I can tell that you're definitely not the person doing the onboarding for the French speakers.
oh no, the tiny bit of German, tiny bit. That's probably it. But other than that, no.
But I love that. I absolutely love that. The fact that you're, and again, I see this as an outsider looking in. That you, rather than them bending to you, you are bending to them. You know, you're changing the way that you're working to make sure that they are happier, more productive. And again, that doesn't come down to just metrics and, you know, time spent on the floor. It comes down to actually thinking about what is happening to the individual when they onboard, like not just thinking about the masses. So it's a really interesting project, I'm sure.
Like Meg had said, so like obviously we've got the bandwidth at the moment to be picking apart and pulling apart our inductions, and we're doing that not just for the candidate experience but for the internal experience as well. So like our teams are our greatest success. Ultimately, we wouldn't be here and deliver what we do without them. But when you look at the route to apply into HelloFresh, we're very reliant on old school forms of CVs and stuff like this, which is really important for talent acquisition in Marley's line. But when you start to look at the hourly roles that Meg and I bring on, like Meg said, we've got over 50 nationalities at one site. We're not necessarily going to be able to get high quality CVs that reflect those people back to us in the right way. So we could have potentially historically just dequalified people based on that. What we want to do is, while we're doing this, we're going to, again, I'm going to shoehorn you in again here, Woody, but we want to be able to use Willow to help us create that funnel flow where people are able to apply without a CV and tell us about themselves in a video that we can spend that time getting to know them, rather than my team, Meg's team, just spending hours qualifying through CVs that realistically, they don't tell us the truth. They tell us what the individual wants to tell us. And whilst we want to know that information, we still want to know that person. And that's how we get our cultural fit so right. Historically, we've done that through those inductions, but we need to push that into a more efficient form. And we know that Willow can help us do that.
I was listening to an interview the other day on Radio 4, because I'm older than I look, clearly. But I was listening to it, and it was about a Ukrainian refugee who had come to the UK and was living with somebody, and they couldn't apply for any jobs because they didn't have GCSEs on their CV. So they'd apply for a job, and it'd be like rejected by, you know, whatever CV scraping tool that they used. But the person, they had a degree in translation. You know, it just wasn't relevant to the role and all that stuff. And it drives me absolutely up the wall. Like, I know a lot of people talk about eradicating the CV, and I know that Willow can't do it in a universal way. And as soon as we can figure out how we can get rid of that paper-based application for everyone, the better, really, because they're self-edited, they're mostly irrelevant, and it's the technical skills and capability that's important for some roles, and it's the cultural fit and, you know, communication skills that are important for others. So, you know, it's how do we eradicate that? And it's good to hear that you're trying to do it, you know, for roles that it is irrelevant, basically.
Yeah.
I just want to call out very quickly. You just noted about Ukrainians, Woody. I think something that's really something that I want to talk about very quickly is what HelloFresh has done across our European businesses, but also what we're trying to do in the UK. So you highlighted that Ukrainian citizen wasn't able to apply for the job because they didn't have GCSEs. Well, HelloFresh will guarantee interviews to all Ukrainian nationals that have been displaced by the conflict in Ukraine. That started in our DAC business, so in Germany, Switzerland and Austria. We've rolled that out here in the UK as well, and we're working with the local governments for each of our sites to ensure that we are plugged into the correct schemes, that the employability schemes in the local area know that they can direct Ukrainian nationals to us. We'll guarantee them an interview, and we'll do everything we can to then get them into work. At our Derby site, fortunately, because we've set up early and we've had that ability to set up from scratch, we've started to explore the options, especially for our Ukrainian friends that might join us here, English as second language courses that we'll be providing to them as free to help their interaction and engagement into the local community, because ultimately for us, we recognise that as an employer, they give us the majority of their time, and we are the most important part to their life of starting in the UK in that sense. And for them, if we can set them up for success, they will remember that HelloFresh did that, and that will be something that, again, helps augment our brand across people's hearts and minds in the local communities. Nice.
Well, we need to get you on Naga's show on Radio 4 in that case, because they didn't know. You know, it's one of those things, isn't it? Like, that is an amazing initiative, and more people should know about it. I'm not entirely convinced that this podcast is going to be the way that everybody's suddenly going to know about it. But
what do you mean? What do you mean? You've got us on. It's going to go viral.
That's true. Yeah, it might, just for the megalomaniac nickname, maybe. But yeah, no, that's an amazing initiative, Jack. And I especially, again, I think it's that one step beyond. Everything that HelloFresh does seems to be one step beyond, like offering second language training for free to people, you know, that have been displaced by conflict, etc. That's like, okay, great, you're opening the door, but you're also helping them settle. You're helping them perform. You're helping them be happy, productive, etc. In what is a truly horrific situation. So very interesting. I'm conscious of time. I know that the three of us could talk all day about different things, but I think we should probably. I think we should probably wrap up. Usually, I ask for 3 bits of advice from one person. So rather than that, I'm going to ask for 1 bit of advice from each of you, and it can either be for a candidate, if you want to, speak to the candidate audience, because we do have some candidates listening to get sort of insights into recruitment processes and what they can do to stand out and that kind of stuff, or to other organizations in kind of similar situations that are trying to either improve their employer brand or their selection process or whatever it may be. So who should I pick on first, or do you just want to self-select? Anybody got a bit
rock,
of
paper, scissors?
Yeah. Blimey, that would be tough, especially for you, Meg, because there's a delay on your line. So you could win every single one. Just wait till the others have gone.
Strategy.
Yeah, nice.
I'll go first.
Go on then. Nice.
As I said, rock, paper, scissors, and it didn't come to fruition. I was going to choose scissors, by the way. So what I would say for other companies kind of going through high volume, specifically the same as Jack and I and what we're doing for HelloFresh, I think it's very important to try and keep up with the times. And I know it's easier said than done, but in the fact of being open-minded, a lot of places I know and that I've worked with as an agency, obviously them being my client, it was very much we do it this way. Oh, so, have you thought about doing it any other way? No, we've always done it this way. That's one of the biggest bugbears of mine. If you can't explain why you do it and why it makes sense, then there's a reason why it should change. So be open to change. Change isn't a bad thing. Change is actually going to help your business if you move with the times to be able to get things progressing further. So I think just be more open to change.
Nice. I totally agree. Good advice. Who's next?
I'll go.
Marley can go.
I'll go, thank you. I think for me, with it being such a candidate-driven market, just understand your candidate and really just always cross-check your process and just think with the candidate at the forefront of everything that you do. I think it's so key, because otherwise you get into this state of thinking that you know what the candidate wants and thinking you're doing the right thing, whereas actually, that could be the complete opposite. So getting feedback and really understanding what people want, I think, is really key.
Nice. Again, totally agree. Jack, with the haymaker.
I appreciated Marley going between us to split out Meg and I. We often get told we're the same person because sometimes we dress the same, we finish each other's sentences. On this occasion, I will not lie, she did completely steal mine.
Sorry.
Ultimately, I agree with Meg, and I say that all too often. But you, as an employer, you need to really embrace the change and keep up with the times. It's 2022. Technology is key to everybody's success. You use it day to day. Your mobile phone in your pocket is smarter than the computer that you're probably working on right now. You need to get real and to embrace platforms and technology that can help speed up that process and get candidates the right satisfaction and the right way through the business.
Awesome.
Completely.
It's all
Hence
one
being the same
giant
person.
VPN. Yeah. Meg Jackson. Meg Jackson. Yeah. I mean, you've literally got the names just tied up together in one way or another. So
we do. We've decided to call ourselves Mac, because then we're Return of the Mac. Wherever we go, we're always returning.
Maclomaniacs. There you go. Finished off with an absolute
banger.
Absolute banger. Well, look, thank you so much for coming on. As I knew I would, really enjoyed the conversation. I think the main thing is that I took away from the call is actually just treat your employees well and have good values as a business, and then make sure that your talent team embody how you treat, your employees, so that then actually translates into how they treat candidates, and everything else will kind of take care of itself. And the fact that HelloFresh goes one step beyond in every element of that, it feels.
I mean,
they're the 1%.
Just on, I hope so. Just on the back of that as well, just because I think it shows the epitome of like what we do as a team. I have people come up to me in other teams, in other offices, quite often say about how they wish that they were on our team because of the culture that we have in our own team as well, and what we're presenting out. And that to me just shows that we're obviously getting something right. If even internally people are looking to us going, that's a good team to be a part of. I think that's good.
Awesome. Have you got any talent acquisition roles available at the moment?
I do. If you would like a position in the best recruitment team, in the best business in the land, there is a a workforce staffing coordinator position available in Derby. You can find that on our careers page or via a very cunning meme on my LinkedIn.
Which is very good.
We do also currently have a recruitment executive position available in Marley's team. So we're looking for both sides of the business. Now, like Marley said earlier, is absolutely the time to get involved. So please do reach out to Meg, Marley, or myself if you are interested in any of the positions that are available at HelloFresh.
Awesome. Thanks, Jack. And how do people get in touch? What's the best way to get in touch with all of you?
You can try LinkedIn, but please don't try and sell me stuff, because that's all I've been getting at the minute is people trying to sell me stuff on LinkedIn. Like, if you send me a genuine message, you'll get a response. If it's a pyramid scheme of some description, I'm not interested.
Yeah. If we're here and we're talking about LinkedIn for a moment, gosh.
It's great,
as an internal recruiter, you get so many messages from agencies. Now, as an former agency rep, I am so sad about the amount of harassment I've sent into the world. So while I've got this public forum, I'd like to say to every single one of my former clients and prospects, I am very sorry for harassing you for very many years.
There you go. You have purged yourself. Well done, Jack. The atonement has been achieved. But look, I think I'll just put in whatever email address is best into the show notes, and like LinkedIn links to each of you, and people can get in touch that way. So you're not hard to get hold of, that's for sure, I don't think. So good to speak to you all. Thank you so much. And I'm sure we'll speak again very soon.
Hope so.
Catch up soon. And on Marley's behalf, see you later.
Her iPad died.
She sends her a
Oh no, you're joking.